I suppose if I'm going to tell this story, I should start with honesty. My name doesn't matter. What matters is the choices I made, the people I hurt, and the person I became in the process. I tell myself I'm not proud of it, but if I'm being brutally honest, part of me still craves what happened, the danger, the thrill, the way my blood seemed to run hotter than ever before. Infidelity has a strange way of making you feel both alive and filthy at the same time. When I met my wife, Anna, I was in my late 20s. She was the kind of woman people stopped to look at, not because she was stunning in an obvious way, but because she carried herself with a quiet grace. Long dark hair that fell over her shoulders, brown eyes that always seemed to be measuring people without judging them. She had this ability to make you feel like the most important person in the room. I fell in love quickly, and by the time we married, I believed I had found the woman I would grow old with. For a while, everything was simple. We moved into a modest apartment in the city, both working full-time jobs, she as a teacher, I as a project manager at a mid-sized construction firm. We fought sometimes, but nothing unusual. Bills, laundry, in-laws. The ordinary battles of married life. But somewhere along the way, routine dug its claws into us. We stopped kissing when one of us left for work. Sex dwindled to once a week, sometimes less. I can't blame her entirely, I know I grew distant, distracted, carrying the stress of work home with me. Then came her. Her name was Julia. She joined my company as an interior designer, and from the moment I shook her hand, I felt that dangerous tug in my chest. She was different from Anna in almost every way, blonde, lively, with a sharp wit and a laugh that filled any space. She dressed boldly, not inappropriately, but enough to make you notice. And God, I noticed. At first, it was harmless. Meetings where our eyes lingered a little too long. Lunch breaks where I found myself timing my schedule to hers. The kind of subtle magnetic pull you tell yourself is just chemistry, nothing more. But chemistry has a way of demanding to be fed. The first time it really crossed the line was during an after-work gathering. A group of us went out for drinks, a Friday night ritual, and somehow Julia and I ended up sitting at the corner of the bar, apart from the rest. I remember the smell of her perfume, something light and floral, the way her bare arm brushed against mine as she leaned in to tell a story. I laughed too loud, drank too much, and when she placed her hand on my thigh under the table, I didn't move it. That night I went home to Anna, slipped quietly into bed beside her, and stared at the ceiling for hours. Nothing had technically happened, but something had shifted. I felt both guilt and an odd, exhilarating sense of possibility. The following weeks became a blur of temptation. Inside jokes exchanged during meetings, text messages late at night that started with work questions and drifted into personal confessions. She told me about her ex, how he never really saw her for who she was. I told her about my marriage, though I left out the parts about Anna's patience and kindness. Instead, I painted a picture of myself as misunderstood, underappreciated. It's incredible how easily lies slip out when you're chasing something you know you shouldn't. The first kiss happened in my car. We had stayed late at the office finishing a presentation. I offered her a ride, and when we pulled up to her apartment building, she leaned in to thank me. I don't even remember who moved first, maybe her, maybe me, but suddenly her lips were on mine, soft and urgent. I kissed her back like a starving man. When I got home, Anna was asleep on the couch, the TV still playing some late-night show. I stood there, watching her breathe, and for the first time I truly felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I told myself I would stop, that it was just a moment of weakness. But the truth is, once you've tasted the forbidden, going back feels impossible. I think about that first kiss more than I should. Not because it was the most passionate I've ever had, though it was, but because it was the moment the ground beneath my life shifted. There's a before and an after. Before, I was just a husband in a drifting marriage. After, I was a man living two lives. Julia didn't text me that night. I remember staring at my phone, wondering if she regretted it, if she'd pretend it hadn't happened. By morning, I convinced myself that maybe I'd imagined the whole thing, that the heat and the alcohol had twisted it into more than it was. But then, around lunch, she sent me a single message: "We need to talk." My pulse spiked reading those words. I slipped out of the office and met her in a cafe a block away. She looked nervous, almost guilty, which made me feel less alone. "This can't happen again," she said, stirring her coffee without looking at me. "You're married." "I know," I said, though I didn't mean it. But even as the words left her mouth, there was a flicker in her eyes, a spark that betrayed her resolve. It wasn't "can't happen again," it was "shouldn't." And shouldn't is a flimsy shield against desire. For a couple of weeks, we tried to keep things professional. We spoke less, avoided being alone together. But avoidance only fuels the hunger. By the third week, it snapped. We were working late again, the office empty. She came to my desk to ask a quick question, and suddenly we were kissing again, this time harder, faster, with the pent-up desperation of two people who had been pretending for too long. My hands tangled in her hair, hers clawed at my shirt, and when she whispered, "We shouldn't be doing this," it only pushed me further. We ended up in the back room, the one where samples of wood and tile were stored. It smelled of dust and varnish, and it was the first place I betrayed my wife in body, not just in thought. When it was over, I sat on the floor beside Julia, my shirt half buttoned, my heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. Guilt pressed in immediately, heavier than before. She looked at me, her lipstick smudged, and said softly, "We've gone too far." But the truth was, there was no turning back. At home, I grew restless. Anna started noticing. She'd ask, "Why are you so quiet lately?" or "Are you okay?" I'd blame work, stress, deadlines. The lies came easier than I thought they would. Each one stacked on the other, building a fragile tower that I knew would collapse someday. But passion makes you reckless. With Julia, everything felt electric. We stole moments in empty hallways, quick kisses in stairwells, late-night phone calls that stretched into dawn. She made me feel wanted again, desired in a way that had faded from my marriage. And yet, the more I had her, the more complicated it became. She started asking questions about Anna, about my marriage. At first, she claimed she didn't want to interfere, that she was fine being the secret. But nobody stays fine with that role for long. One night, we were lying tangled in a cheap motel bed, the kind of place where nobody asks questions, and she turned to me and said, "Do you love her?" The question sliced through me. I opened my mouth, closed it again. I thought about Anna, about the years we'd shared, about her quiet smile when she graded papers at the kitchen table. I thought about how she rubbed her eyes when she was tired, how she left little notes on the fridge when she went out. "I don't know anymore," I admitted. Julia nodded, but I could see the tension in her jaw. "And me? Do you love me?" I hesitated. The truth is, I didn't know what love was anymore. What I felt for Julia was consuming, addictive, intoxicating. But was it love? Or was it just lust dressed up in pretty words? "Yes," I said anyway. Her eyes softened, and she kissed me like she wanted to believe it. Maybe she did. But the thing about secrets is they breed suspicion. One night, Anna confronted me. "You've been different," she said, her voice calm but sharp, like a knife hidden beneath silk. "Is there someone else?" The question nearly made me choke. I denied it, of course, lied straight to her face. I told her she was imagining things, that work had been draining me, that I loved her. She stared at me for a long time, her eyes searching, and finally said, "I hope you're telling me the truth." That was the first time I realized what I stood to lose. But did it stop me? No. If anything, it drove me deeper into Julia's arms. Every stolen moment felt like proof that I was still alive, still capable of feeling something beyond the dull hum of routine. I told myself I deserved it. That Anna and I had grown apart, that this was inevitable. Lies upon lies. And yet, even in the middle of passion, I could feel a storm gathering on the horizon. Affairs don't stay in the shadows forever. At first, you believe you're clever enough, careful enough, that nobody will notice. But love, or what masquerades as love, leaves traces. A different tone in your voice. A certain light in your eyes that wasn't there before. And, more dangerously, the moments when you stop pretending even when you should. It started with jealousy. Julia hated the fact that I went home every night to Anna. She never said it outright at first, but the resentment seeped through. If I missed one of her texts because I was having dinner with my wife, she'd send another, sharper, more demanding. If I told her I couldn't meet because I had plans, she'd go cold and silent, forcing me to chase after her reassurance. "Do you even want this?" she asked me once, her arms crossed, her body angled away from me on the edge of a hotel bed. "I'm here, aren't I?" I replied, too quickly, too defensively. "That's not the same." Her voice cracked slightly, though she tried to hide it. "You go home to her. You kiss her goodnight. You sleep in her bed. And then you come here and pretend like I'm the one you want most." The words stung because they were true. I wanted both. I wanted the safety of Anna and the fire of Julia. The comfort and the chaos. The wife and the mistress. And the more impossible it became to balance the two, the more reckless I grew. There was a night I'll never forget, the night the walls of my double life almost collapsed. Anna had invited me to dinner at her sister's house. A family gathering. I was supposed to go straight there from work. But Julia texted me, "I need you. Please, just for an hour." I told myself I'd stop by quickly, that nobody would notice if I was late. 1 hour stretched into 2. By the time I left her apartment, sweaty and disheveled, my phone buzzed with missed calls and angry messages from Anna. I arrived at her sister's house with my excuse rehearsed, "Meeting ran late, I'm sorry." But the look Anna gave me across the table told me she didn't believe a word. She was polite in front of her family, smiling faintly, laughing at the right moments, but her eyes burned holes through me. When we got home that night, she barely spoke. She just climbed into bed and turned her back to me. That silence was worse than any fight. Meanwhile, Julia was pushing for more. She started talking about the future, our future. "You can't keep living like this," she said one morning, curling against me beneath cheap motel sheets. "You can't have both of us forever. You'll have to choose." I tried to stall. "It's complicated. Anna and it's not easy to just walk away from a marriage." She pulled back, her eyes flashing. "So you'd rather keep lying to her? Keep lying to yourself?" I hated that she was right. I hated even more that part of me wanted to choose her, to burn my old life down and start anew. But another part clung to Anna, not just out of guilt, but because I still loved her, in a quieter, steadier way. That duality tore me apart. With Anna, I was a husband, dependable, safe. With Julia, I was alive, reckless, desired. And the more Julia demanded answers, the more cornered I felt. It all came to a head one weekend. Anna suggested we go away together, just the two of us. A small cabin by the lake. "We need this," she said, her voice softer than it had been in months. And I agreed, thinking maybe this was the chance to fix things, to rediscover the love I had been throwing away. But Julia didn't see it that way. When I told her I'd be out of town, she exploded. "So she still gets everything, and I get scraps," she shouted over the phone. "It's not like that. Don't lie to me. You're choosing her, every single day you stay with her. Do you think I want to be your dirty little secret forever?" Her words lodged in my chest like glass. That night, while Anna slept peacefully beside me in the cabin, I snuck outside and called Julia. We argued under the stars, my voice low, hers sharp and breaking. "Tell me you love me," she demanded. "I do," I whispered. "Then prove it." But I had no proof to give her. Only stolen hours and empty promises. When I went back inside, Anna stirred and murmured, "Where'd you go?" "Just needed some air," I lied. Lying had become second nature, but each one left another crack in the facade. And I knew, deep down, it was only a matter of time before everything shattered. The turning point wasn't one single moment but 1,000 little ones piling up: Julia's growing bitterness, Anna's sharp intuition, my own inability to choose. I was playing with fire on both ends, and the heat was closing in. I didn't know then that the worst was still ahead: the betrayal, the confrontation, the heartbreak that would tear everything apart. But the storm was already gathering. When people talk about affairs, they rarely mention the exhaustion. Not the physical kind, though there's that too, but the emotional exhaustion of living two lives. Waking up each morning and slipping into the role of faithful husband, then sneaking away to play the lover, the liar, the addict. Every smile felt forced. Every excuse chipped away at me. I was walking a tightrope over fire, and I knew eventually I'd fall. It happened sooner than I expected. The night everything unraveled started innocently. Anna asked me to stay in, just a quiet evening together. But Julia had other plans. She texted me in the late afternoon, "Come over. I can't stop thinking about you." I tried to resist. I told her I couldn't, that Anna was already suspicious, that I needed to be careful. But Julia knew which strings to pull. "If you loved me, you'd be here." That single sentence broke me. Against every ounce of reason, I told Anna I had to finish up some paperwork at the office. She looked at me in that way she had lately, sharp, searching. And simply said, "Don't be too late." I should have known then. I should have felt the trap closing. But lust makes fools of us all. Julia was radiant that night. She opened the door in a silk slip, her hair loose, her eyes alight with hunger. The second I stepped inside, she kissed me with a desperation that bordered on anger. "You're mine tonight," she whispered, pulling me toward the bedroom. I should have stopped. I should have walked away. But I didn't. We were tangled in sheets, breathless, when the sound of a door opening froze us both. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. But then, footsteps. And then, a voice. "Tell me it isn't true." I shot upright, my heart slamming against my ribs. Anna stood in the doorway, pale, trembling, her eyes wide and wet with disbelief. She looked at me, then at Julia, then back at me, as if trying to piece together a nightmare she couldn't wake from. "Anna," I started, scrambling for words, for excuses. But there was nothing left to hide. She laughed, a short, broken sound. "Paperwork? This is your paperwork." The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Julia pulled the sheets up to her chest, suddenly small, fragile. Anna just stood there, shaking her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I knew," she whispered. "I knew something was wrong. But I didn't want to believe it. I trusted you." The weight of her words crushed me. I reached for her, but she stepped back as if my touch would burn. "Don't," she said, her voice sharp, slicing through the air. "Don't you dare." And then she left. Just like that. The sound of the door slamming was final, like a coffin lid sealing shut. The aftermath was chaos. I tried calling her, texting her, begging her to talk to me. She ignored every message. I went home that night to find the apartment dark, her clothes already gone. The silence was suffocating. Julia tried to comfort me at first. She wrapped her arms around me, whispered, "It's okay, you have me now." But the truth was, in that moment, I didn't want her. I wanted the life I had just destroyed. Days turned into weeks. Anna filed for separation without another word. Mutual friends avoided me. At work, whispers followed me down hallways. It didn't take long for rumors to spread. Julia became my only refuge, but even that refuge turned sour. Because the thing I hadn't realized was that the affair thrived on secrecy, on stolen moments, on the danger of what we weren't supposed to have. Once the secrecy was gone, so was the spark. Arguments erupted. She wanted me to commit fully, to build a life with her. I tried, but everything felt forced, hollow. One night, after another bitter fight, she screamed, "You ruined your marriage for me, and you don't even want me." The words hung heavy between us, undeniable. And she was right. The betrayal, the lies, the passion, it all came to a head and collapsed in on itself. I lost Anna. I lost Julia. I lost the man I thought I was. The night Anna caught me in that bedroom was the climax, the moment where every lie, every choice, every stolen kiss converged into a single, irreversible truth: I had destroyed the one thing that truly mattered. And I had no one to blame but myself. That was the night my double life ended. But it wasn't the end of the story. Not yet. Because endings aren't clean. They bleed. They linger. They haunt. And mine was only beginning to unravel. People think the worst part of infidelity is being caught. They imagine the shock, the screaming, the tears. But the truth is, that's only the beginning. The worst part is what comes after, the silence, the emptiness, the way you sit alone with yourself and realize the person you became is someone you can't even respect. Anna didn't come back. She didn't call, didn't write. Papers arrived through a lawyer, clean and professional, the language stripped of any trace of the life we had shared. Separation of assets. Division of property. Irreconcilable differences. I signed them without fighting. What right did I have to fight? The apartment became unbearable. Every corner reminded me of her, the couch where she graded papers, the kitchen where she hummed while making tea, the bed that once carried warmth and later only cold distance. I couldn't stay there, so I moved into a smaller place closer to the office. Sterile, impersonal. A place without ghosts, though emptiness can be its own kind of haunting. Julia was still in my life, but not in the way she once was. For a while, she clung to the idea that this was our chance, that now nothing stood in our way. She imagined a future together, a home, maybe even marriage. She spoke of it with conviction, like she could bend reality to her will. But the truth was, I didn't look at her the same way anymore. Without the danger, without the stolen moments, the fire between us cooled. What remained was a mix of guilt, resentment, and obligation. She had been the spark, but she wasn't the flame that could sustain me. And she felt it too. "You don't love me," she said one night, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "I'm trying," I answered weakly. "Trying isn't enough." That was our last real conversation. She left soon after, slamming the door behind her. A few months later, I heard she had taken another job in a different city. I didn't call. I didn't chase her. Life shrank after that. Friends drifted away. Some chose sides, and it wasn't mine. At work, I kept my head down, but whispers followed. The man who cheated. The man who threw away a good marriage. The man who couldn't be trusted. Loneliness settled in like dust. Evenings stretched into endless hours of staring at the walls, replaying every mistake in my head. Regret is a cruel companion. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It whispers when you wake up alone, when you pass couples holding hands on the street, when you hear a familiar song on the radio that once belonged to someone you lost. Years have passed now. Anna moved on. I heard through mutual friends that she remarried, that she has a child. I picture her sometimes, smiling, fulfilled, surrounded by the life I couldn't give her. It stings, but it also makes me glad. She deserved happiness, even if it wasn't with me. As for me, I never remarried. Relationships came and went, but none lasted. Maybe I sabotaged them, or maybe I was too afraid of repeating the same mistakes. Maybe once you've betrayed someone like that, a part of you never trusts yourself again. I live quietly now. Work, home, the occasional dinner with colleagues. On the surface, it looks like stability. But there's an emptiness beneath it all, a hollow space where love used to live. Sometimes, late at night, I think back to the man I was before it all began. The man who kissed Anna on our wedding day with a heart full of certainty. The man who believed love was enough. Where did he go? Maybe he was always weaker than he seemed. Maybe temptation doesn't create the cracks in us, maybe it only reveals them. I don't tell this story to justify myself. There is no justification. I tell it because carrying it alone is too heavy, because maybe in confessing it, I can finally let go of some of the weight. If there's one truth I've learned, it's this: betrayal doesn't end when the affair ends. It lingers. It shapes you. It changes how you see yourself, how you love, how you trust. And sometimes, the person you betray most isn't your partner. It's yourself.